Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Now, Steve, over the past few weeks, we've been going through a series of key collaborative relationships for managing products, right? We went through how do we collaborate with sales? How do we collaborate with marketing? Last week was development. And we're getting to sort of one of the fourth core ones we haven't really talked about in a long, long time, which is customer support. Now, when we did our best place to hire internally for product management, I actually was one of the people who said customer support is where I've had the best success. And so I think this is an incredible place for us to be thinking about. You ready to get going on this?
I am indeed.
All right.
I've always loved my friends in customer support.
And I think we'll find out May feels that way too. So this week we're joined by a great panel. We've got Paul Hurwitz, we've got Cory Bryan, Glenn Pride, May Wong, Shabnam Osman, Calvin Marshall. New to the panel this week, Katherine Dease coming in. We're looking forward to some hot takes from her. And of course, as always, my partner, Steve Johnson. On Monday, the question we put in the community was, what is the best way for product management to build strong collaboration with customer support? Karen Bell DeWitt, who's part of our Product Ops Alliance, came out pretty quickly with, consider them one of your customers and partner with them. They've got metrics, understand them, work to bring in their experts and that type of stuff. I thought it was a great way to sort of get us started. Katherine, you actually were the next person who came, or one of the next people to come in. You said you have regular listening posts with the support teams to report back to product on things you can do and help the lives of the customers. Talk to me about these listening posts.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of like a mini listening tour, but with our customer service department. I do them with all of our departments at Insurance Technologies. We cover really thought-provoking questions, but some of them are like, what is the one time waste that you guys are dealing with that is literally a time suck? Or might ask a question like, if there's one thing that we could solve for you today, what would it be? What's one thing that we need to solve in the next 90 days for you? And there's always a key planned benefit for everything we do. So we're still going to prioritize those on our roadmap. But our customer support area gets to hear firsthand what is causing time issues with our clients. They're having to research, they're having to solve, and then they're ultimately coming to product to make a product enhancement for. So the listening posts are regular. They're at least once a quarter. But honestly, we really touch base more than almost every other week and kind of status on what we're doing. But at the very least, we have guaranteed quarterly touch base for. Now they're working with my team regularly.
Yep.
But from a CPO level, I personally meet with the customer service department quarterly.
That's coming out strong. I love it. I mean, one of the things that really comes to me about all these topics we've done in the past 4 weeks, all the different functions that we collaborate with, is how we almost have to do product management for them. They're our internal customers, which is what Karen Bell DeWitt was saying. And just like them, let's listen to them and find their problems. And I love the way you look at finding those things that are their time sucks, because those are, as Steve would say, friction points we can help remove. Coming out of the Katherine, you're going to fit in just fine here.
And I want to agree fervently with Katherine. I prefer the concept of listening post as opposed to customer. I think we often in product and marketing say things like, oh, well, sales is our customer and support is our customer and the other guy's a customer. And yeah, I really like customers to be customers, real customers. But I love the concept of listening post.
Well, can I add to the reason why I call it a listening post is because if we asked Henry Ford, if Henry Ford asked everyone, what do you need? They would say faster horses.
Right.
And the same thing is when I go to customer service, they'll tell me, oh, we need X. But when I allow them to elaborate and go down the rabbit hole all I do is listen and ask questions. And it's the 5 whys. Why this? Why, right? Then I'm really listening, and then I can actually solve the problem and not just Band-Aid it. So that's why I call it a listening post more than anything else.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, May came in pretty soon after that. And May, wait, where's Calvin's Heart? May Hart's the support team, and they're the number one users of the product. Talk to me about how much you love support, May.
Their support is the reason why I got into product ops. Believe it or not, because I worked at one of my previous jobs. I worked very closely with the support team, and they had an amazing operation setup. People who are very operations minded, thinking about how to do tooling to do best practices, how to improve the thing. And in a way, support was really driving innovation somehow. We had a very complicated implementation setup, and they were the first to adopt Docker and ways to do things better and spin things up faster. So just I think we can learn a lot from support because they're the ones who have to deal with our software day in and day out. We hear a lot from sales, like because they're usually the loudest because they have money attached to them. But support is like, your existing client base. So technically there's a lot of money attached to them, but support revenue, aka like the ongoing baseline revenue, is often not considered nearly as valuable as net new revenue. So it's really interesting to see like on a how an organization is funded perspective, how that ends up breaking down and that perception towards support. So very often support's, very often underfunded, understaffed, and therefore they see the most problems too. And if you really want to dive into the problem space, support's got your back. And also, like just to add, I put it in my posts. Because they have to deal with customers, they're usually the most empathetic of like all the people you ever have to work with. So even if they actually never get anything from you, they're still nice about it.
I completely and totally agree. And actually, Glenn, you came in with some things that sort of echo that. Sometimes customers are more candid with them because they're receiving help, and I think that empathy helps there. Talk to me about your thoughts on this.
So yeah, I worked heavily with customer support. One is that they have a special relationship, right? A customer brings them the problem. The customer support person is vested in helping them through their problem. There's a reciprocity there that I think that product management sometimes lacks. You know, I'm going to come to you to interview you. It's about like what I need. But when customer support gets involved, it's really about what the customer needs. And I think that that relationship actually plays out in more candid comments about what's going on. I worked in customer support for about a year and a half, and I think sometimes I was part-time therapist for our product. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. It has something to do with your father. Aside from that,
I thought that's what this call was for, Glenn.
Yeah,
Or should I call you Mike? Sorry.
Whatever it takes, Craig. What I did with them is I invited them into our launch program, which was non-existent at the time, and that's
so you made up a fictional program.
Oh, it's not fictional.
Okay.
No, it involved sales, marketing, development, implementation, and customer support, and it was always about, first of all, what's coming down the pike, what's going to be new, but we also took in things that weren't working and tried to make them better. So there was a conduit there for them to communicate what they're hearing from the customer. And then we would, as a group, we would kind of tackle the problem of why that might be happening. And my engineers heard it firsthand. I heard it firsthand. But we did make a lot of efforts. And one of the things that we really sucked at was documenting how these interfaces work and all the little dials and levers that take
In an enterprise software product, that can make up a ton.
Yeah. And a
Yeah.
lot of these were poorly laid out, poorly labeled. I inherited a lot of tech debt in that position. And they often helped me out by understanding, no, that didn't do it that way. And then I take it back to the developer, and the developer goes, oh, yeah, you're right. You didn't do it that way.
I think bringing in technical debt is a very interesting thing, because I've actually seen software companies who made up for their technical debt by overstaffing customer service. It was a strategic decision, saying, you know what, our technical debt's so bad. I had a conversation with a private equity investor in this one company, and he's like, honestly, we almost look like them as tech-enabled services. They've basically got a really big customer support team that helps people get over the software.
No, we did it opposite. We allotted 20% of our development
To fixing.
to tackle things like that,
Yeah.
to make them more efficient. And we redid our whole interface, the UI, to help out and put tool tips so people weren't inadvertently clicking things that had, So I was really happy with the collaboration that I got from a customer service.
That's great, and it can make a product manager's job so much easier if they have that type of collaboration. Cory, you came in next. You said great answers, and amplified the need to listen and find good patterns of what support folks are here. I mean, to me, this is almost becoming this recurring theme of these answers, right? It's about listening, and it's about finding patterns. It's about doing product management for these internal stakeholders who we're engaged with and partnering with. So, talk to me more about that, Cory.
So it's something where places I've been before, I go talk to the customer support people, the managers, and kind of hear what's happening this month. Like this month, we had 60% of our users call in and said they had a problem with this report or something. Okay. Yeah. What's wrong with the report? What types of things were you seeing? Is there something that's in the report that's bad, or people couldn't find this new feature? Okay, great. Why is that? This is real information from real customers. These are not qualified sales leads. These are actually people who have bought and already trying to use your product, and you need to help them. And that's what I find very interesting about that is where's the patterns, where's the information? The other thing that I mentioned is sometimes, every once in a while, go sit there for a day and take phone calls. Be the support person yourself to hear what things are happening.
Yep.
As much as I like having data, product usage data from Pendo, Amplitude, Mixpanel, whatever. These are context-driven information you're getting from these calls. Plus, if you're at a place where they won't let you talk to customers, this is your opportunity to do that.
Yeah. No, I love that. Although anytime I did that, I ruined all their metrics, right? Average talk time, everything. Because I just would keep talking, and hopefully they could back me out of the metrics.
But I think I'm going to add that I think that's a must-have really for onboarding a new product manager, is they have to spend at least a month on the lines.
Talking to people.
Yeah, I think that's a great onboarding tool.
Well, which is also why I thought there was a good reason to hire people into product management from there, so you don't have to do that. Save that time. Paul Hurwitz, you talk to them, echo whatever said. They're the first line of defense with issues happening in the product. You talk about finding out what's keeping them up at night. I take this back to Catherine's original comment about sort of, what's eating up their time. Talk to me about where your head is.
So similar. So I like to talk to them and find out what are the big sticking points that are bothering them. Cory was just talking about product data, like from Amplitude or Mixpanel or whatever. Look at the data that's coming out of Zendesk or whatever ticketing system they're using, and find out what's the trends in the tickets that are happening. And you can find out where the problem areas of the software are. Oh, there's 15 tickets this month out of 70 on this particular topic, so let's deal with those, kind of a thing. The other area that I think is really key that support can help with is they're like the canary in the coal mine when a new product release goes out, if there's a problem with it or a new bug is introduced or something like that, they're going to be the first ones to know about it. And you want to keep in close contact with them on these like QA issues.
Oh, as you know, I bring up Rita McGrath and this whole concept of that snow and ice melts at the edges, and you know, when it comes to new product release, they are the edge, right?
Right.
They're the first sensing stuff out there to figure out what's going on. I love that idea of engaging them there and that type of stuff. Shabnam, I'd love to get your take on this. You know, what is the best way to build that strong collaboration with customer support?
Yeah, so I didn't answer the question because, like you said, there were similar threads coming through. As I'm listening to everyone speak, I think the interesting piece for me is how you practically do that. So, as Katherine said, okay, she does the listening posts, and I know at our company we were quite good at engaging with customer support when we were tiny, and when they were our only way to get to the customers. And then as soon as we start a customer research team or customer insights, you forget about the ops people in customer support, or they actually at the front line. So we've been trying to loop back and get closer to them. I love this, and I think Cory, I don't know if Cory or Paul mentioned it now around. Actually, Cory, you mentioned about actually taking calls. I will bring those metrics down. I'm too scared. I need a script to say, "Hi, my name is Shabnam," or I will forget to do that. So it's not something that I'll easily do. But what we are trying to do is do a lot more direct exposure. So we've started doing these little sessions for every product area, product domain, where you have some consultants come. Yes, you do some stats. Yes, they share stories. But also, let's all listen to a call together and then talk about it and talk about the issues. You know, let's read a couple of emails together and then discuss what's happened. What I've found is that depending on the culture in the team, of the customer support, because their first priority is helping the end customer, many times, unless it's a big deal, those issues don't bubble up to us. So we do need to proactively reach out and ask, because many of you mentioned in the message, like they find easy workarounds and usage, and that's like a gold mine that they're sitting on that they don't share. And many times they don't know how to share that feedback. So we've been teaching and coaching people on how to tell those customer stories. So that, you know, once you're off the call, you've dealt with the customer, dealt with the issue, tell the story in a way that builds empathy so that product people and engineers understand what the problems are. And that's that's kind of helped a little bit.
What Shabnam says is so true. Sometimes, like the old timers, as they're training new people on a support team, we'll just teach them these quick little workarounds because of long-standing issues that they know about that don't get trickled up to product.
Yeah.
And by talking, like you can find out about those things and try and fix them.
Completely agree. Shabnam, you know, you're 3 for 3, 3 weeks on the call, 3, you know, brilliant insights doing that. Calvin, you've been awful quiet. Maybe getting a little hearts from you, but
you know, I've been quiet on this one because when I saw the question posted, I'm like, crap, this is something that I haven't been doing enough of. And as I read some of the answers that were provided, I was like, I didn't answer this because I don't know that there's anything that I could add that moves the conversation forward. Some of the information that was shared was so valuable and a reminder of something that I haven't been able to slot time for. So that's why I've been quiet and why I didn't answer the question.
I always worry when you're quiet, Calvin, because that's not your nature.
When I'm quiet, it means I'm listening and learning something.
we love that. Katherine, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to echo and add to Shabnam's comment about one, they don't always know how to trickle the information up, but what you mentioned was maybe one of you mentioned, if they've already found a fix for the problem and they're teaching, if someone was said they're teaching them the quick fixes because this is a problem they already know about, that is a gold mine. That is exactly what a listening post, whether you go out to your clients or whether you do that internal, that is what you're supposed to be finding out. Because if the problem isn't worth fixing, it's not worth putting a senior developer and architect on often. But if it's been such a pain point for them that they've created some easy fix for it, chances are you go validate with others externally, your clients, is this something you're dealing with too? And all of a sudden you've increased your value to your product because you've identified a very key issue. So I just commend you for pointing that out, but that's the whole, right? If they haven't fixed the problem, it's not worth it. But if they have, well, now you've got, right. But it's a Band-Aid, right?
No, I think that's great. And Nils Davis has appeared out of the ether. I think Nils has a comment on this.
I thanks for calling on me, Grant. I was a little frustrated with this question because while I've always had a pretty good relationship with support at my current company, all bets are off. Everything is weird at this current company, but in previous companies, I've had a really good relationship with support. They love me, and it's like, but I can't figure out why. Basically, I mean, I go and I help them solve problems occasionally, but all of the signals that I would expect to get from support, like, well, the biggest thing that I typically will do, and this is what my answer to the question was, is sales has told me about this problem that's happening in the field and it's terribly critical and horrible and everybody's suffering. Is that true? And usually the answer, of course, is no, which is useful to know. But what does surprise me, what I don't get from support, and I also expect this from services, which I often don't get, is how are people using our product in ways that we don't expect? How are they solving problems that, because there's always problems on the edge of the problems that we do solve that still need to be solved.
Yep.
And often they use our product for that. Well, give me some examples of that. I'm always trying to find that out from both support and services, and I'm always disappointed. So I guess my story is really more about lack of success stories. Right? Even though, as I say, I always have a good relationship. They like working with me because I'm straightforward and whatever, all the good things that we should be. But the thinking of them as a gold mine they've never shown up as a gold mine. Of course, understanding, I guess everything we do, we're always just looking for little signals anyway, right? We're never going to get the strong signal that says, oh, here's the thing you need to do. It's always little bits of things. But anyway, that's my story about support.
Well, Nils, we're excited to have you on the call, and thank you for the 2 cents on that. Catherine, you another comment on this?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just am so passionate about
about
like
it.
I said, I'm passionate about product, but so customer service is not product, right? I mean, they are not necessarily the people that are going to be thinking about all the potential ways that we could use the product. But, so I would think of them differently, right? They're going to provide the things like Shabnam was talking about, where these are the users of our product all rolled into one, where I can go talk to individual clients, which we do, but you're going to get a consolidated view. But what they're typically not good at, and to Nils, to your exact point, they're not product people. They're not strategists. They're not out talking to the non-customers. They're not out trying to find a blue ocean. They are trying to use the product as we designed it and told them to use it and drive adoption. So I don't see them as being the ones that are going to help us get to the blue ocean, but I do see them being the ones that are going to help us find better usage of our product so we can better NPS scores. Better product.
I love that concept, but you start thinking. I was thinking when Nils was talking, should we be teaching them how to ask why, right? Ask the follow-up question. But to your point, maybe that's getting outside of their bandwidth. Their job is to support the user in the specific use case at that time, not to ask those follow-up questions. What we need to do is get them to understand, if you're seeing a trend on this request or this thing, yes, Nils, asking why will kill their metrics. But, teaching them to understand that when they see these things, to let us know. That's a great place to engage us to help find these types of things. Feature requests are a great place to find under and unmet problems.
Right.
Let us do the ones who dig to get to that, not them. So, Steve, this may be as quiet as you've been this far through a call.
I'm enjoying everyone's perspective, and I'm making little notes to myself of things that I want to add. I find it particularly interesting that sales and marketing begs people to call them. And customer support gets called all the time. And we measure customer support on how quickly can you get off this phone call. And it's just like, it's so backwards. I mean, we've got this wonderful inbound resource that most of us really don't take much advantage of. But also, you know, supporting the idea of, are you doing anything surprising? You know, I think there are very often times when customer support is being asked, you know, how do I make the product do this thing you never intended? And in my experience, customer support really gets into it. But the final thing I'll just kind of add is I earned credibility straight away with my customer support and my documentation people in my first product management job when I said documentation is the evidence of poor design. So whenever you see a sign, that's because somebody doesn't know where to go, right? Whenever there's
pull.
Yeah, exactly. And customer support really comes across those things. And when they're doing things like, you know, here's the workarounds that I do, it's because they've uncovered a design flaw. But instead of, you know, to Catherine's point, instead of, you know, seeing it systematically or seeing it strategically and saying, hey, we ought to address this, they tend to have an attitude of, screw it, you know, here's the workaround because I know product's never going to do anything about this because there's no money involved. But oh, wait, shouldn't we be caring about our users at least as much as we care about our salespeople?
Completely. And actually, a couple great things in the chat that I wanted to get to. Shabnam said, how about a share your favorite customer hack Slack channel? I think that's brilliant, right? Get the support team talking about the favorite hacks they found. It's a great way for us to get insight of how people are using the product outside of the realm of what we thought was how they should use it. And Cory, you just bringing up Zappos, you just made me really realize this is going back to our what is a product conversation a while back, which is like customer support is part of the product, right? We need to be thinking about customer support as part of the product. But and Zappos clearly views customer service and customer support as product of the product. So, you know, if we go back to the question, maybe the best way for us to build strong collaboration with them is to acknowledge and understand that they are part of the product. Customer support is part of the product, and we need to do that.
And maybe it's give the support people the way to solve the problems that we can't solve with product. Not everything can be solved with product, sad as it is to admit it. Sometimes it requires a human talking to another human. And if there's something we can do to enable that conversation or to help that conversation, that would be better.
And Nils, I don't know if it's a spec. I think it's just part of your whole product concept, right? You identify it as part of the whole product versus writing a spec for it. Maybe the spec is, yeah, we'll do this with service in support to your earlier conversation. I'm about ready to go to the poll, and this is where Paul normally chimes in. Paul, any last thoughts before I go to the poll? Say I'm going to the poll?
No.
Okay. On Wednesday, we did our poll. Where can product management get the most value from collaborating with customer support? And I don't know, Steve. I said, I think this is the most runaway poll we've had in a long time. Insight on usage with 47% was the clear winner. Everything else, you know.
I just voted and bumped it up to 50%.
So, okay, we hit 50%. I was going to ask if you voted. Other with 15%, evidence of quality issues 15%, understanding of user personas 10%, source of new product ideas 10%. So, you know, from our conversation already, the listening post that Katherine was talking about, our empathy and our engagement to understand these things, I definitely see insights as the key thing.
Grant, on that point, before you get too far away from it, customer support engages with customers at a different time. I mean, people who know me know how passionate I am about win-loss analysis, which is a product role, not a product activity, not a sales activity. And what we most often find in win-loss analysis is sales enablement problems, not product problems. And yet you won't find usage problems in win-loss because they haven't actually started using it yet. It's
Yeah.
that long-term user that calls customer support that is telling you, usually very clearly, that they can't do something that they thought they should be able to do. And it could be a documentation failure, it could be a design failure. There are lots of things it could be, but a lot of the listening posts that we have in most organizations are all on the front end. How do we sell more of this, as opposed to how do we keep those customers coming back month after month?
I think we're going to start using that term in some of our training, listening post. I like that when we talk about collaboration. Catherine, I will give you credit. Shibnan, have you voted? Did you vote on this one?
Yeah, I voted with the majority, insights and usage.
Yeah, everybody's going to say they voted the majority,
Sally.
aren't they?
Please move my car.
I will come move it.
All right. Catherine, did you vote on this one? What would you vote?
It's interesting how he's looking at it. If you could vote multiple places, because I think they have a pretty good idea of the user personas, the actual implemented user personas.
Yeah.
I definitely think insights on usage, but those two are very similar, honestly. So, and evidence of quality issues. So it would.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button when I was trying to get to the chat. My bad. We're back recording. So yes, do multiple. Yeah, I love the idea of the understanding the user personas, because it's almost like a perceived user persona versus real user persona that we get.
Exactly. Like when we design our product, we have user personas, but then you get out there and the clients are like, well, I want to do it. We're in the financial services, and we have so many different channels and so many different ways that the product is used in real life. So we have personas, but when the rubber hits the road, we're oftentimes only half right.
No, I love that as that viewpoint, and actually starts making me think about the understanding of this whole real versus perceived. I think there's a stream there I should be thinking about. May, how did you vote?
I voted for evidence of quality issues.
Because I'm used to you voting other it depends and having a long thing about it.
What? No, I never vote other it depends.
I'm joking.
Oh, I see.
Normally you comment on it.
I do comment on it. It is always very tempting, I must say. It is always very tempting.
So evidence of quality issues is what you...
Yeah, I picked that because I think that as product managers, the thing that we have the most control over is, well, not really control, but when we work with our pods, we talk often about what we're building, but we don't really take a step back and think about, what is the quality of what we're putting out.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to keep an eye on quality, because that is actually the customer experience. What they end up using is great context, and how they end up using it on usage is great context. But I think it's really important to keep that really close eye on the quality of the product, especially if you are in, if your customers have a lot of say, if you've upset a VP because you fed them the wrong meal in the food services industry, or the VP can't get their lunch in their 5 minutes between meetings, like that often ends up being a bad thing for you. So I think depending on your, really in general, quality is very important.
I get it. Calvin.
I voted on insights on usage. I mean, I just thought about getting information from somebody who's not sales, who's interacting with the customer, because they're, in my opinion, sales sometimes has an agenda of hitting their number for selling the product, and where customer, if those groups that are more customer case facing and talking to a number of different customers on a regular basis, their view is a little more neutral, because they don't have a chip in the game regarding compensation.
Had you voted before we started? Because normally you wait until I've already captured the image of the poll.
I did. I voted Thursday.
Okay, good. So you are part of that 50% now with Steve's vote that we'd gotten there.
I am. Yes, indeed.
Paul Hurwitz, you joined Joy in that evidence of quality issues or insights and uses. Which did you put 2?
So I actually voted for other.
Okay.
Usually I'm not an other kind of a person, but this week I was, because I felt that both of those are the key ones for me.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Glenn, you said there's a special relationship that only customer support can provide. It's a relationship reciprocity, information from clients. I'm assuming that meant you vote for Insight. You're on mute.
I went rogue this week, and
suddenly,
so suddenly I'm fly fishing. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I have had some success with introducing new products, only because in healthcare the ecosystem was very complex.
So you voted for source of new products.
I have at least 3 new products added because the person talked to the customer support person, do you have one of these? And we were able to act upon those and actually generate yet another place to reach out for clinical or healthcare data to enrich the patients. So,
awesome. Well, good. This is actually a poll where at least there was a couple votes for everything. So I did a better job with my answers. Nils, you said that, you feel the early warning system on issues is most critical, but then you talk about the, validating whether sales tells me the truth. Did you vote for evidence of quality issues? Did you vote on insight? Which did you vote for? Or other?
I voted for evidence of quality issues as the primary. The emergencies come up. The first people I go to is tech support to find out. Even in my current company, where, as I mentioned, everything is weird, but in the old companies and the smaller companies, where I had personal relationships with all of the people, I would say, what's actually going on, and and sometimes they'd say, yeah, this is happening to every single person, so I would say, okay, we will get a bunch of people on it, and other times would be, no, that has never happened before, it's not really happening. I still obviously take it seriously, but it's a little bit different level of urgency.
Awesome. And Cory, you sort of echoed Nils and said I like the I'm just trying to do X or it won't let me do Y type of info. Which vote was it insights on usage that you voted for?
Insights on usage, yeah. I always want to know, almost more than anything, how our customers are using our products. Are we solving their problems? Are we making their lives better? If we are, great. Where's the data that supports that? If we're not, what's the problem and who can we talk to about that? And that's where that comes in. Frequently you get calls, and it's interesting listening to the beginning of the calls where people say, I'm just trying to do this, or it won't let me do X. Okay. I'd like to understand why it won't let you do X, but what are you trying to do? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, no, makes a ton of sense. Any last thoughts on this poll? I mean, insights on usage was the clear winner, but as I hear people talking about user personas and evidence of quality, even Glenn with the source of new product ideas, it really opened my eyes to the value. There's a ton of valuable places we can be. This may be one of the ones, if Joy was here, I would have let her do all of the above on.
I don't have anything like profound to say, but the one thing I thought of when people were talking was signaling possible churn, because like there's an opportunity here to understand or to retrospectively look back and go, hey, customers have churned. Let's see if there were signals like earlier on when they were engaging with customer support that we could pick up and then start seeing trends in that way.
I love that, Shabnam. That's a great way to think about that. And it takes us back to not just the usage and user and design aspects of it, but the business aspects of the role of product management and how we should be able to be identifying those things and looking for that. If you can find those leading indicators, I remember, I think it was in Rita McGrath's Seeing Around Corners, she talked about there was a company that, they had a whole team that was trying to stop people from leaving. And they realized that if they moved all that activity to the first month or two of the term and made it to make sure people were using it properly, they actually fixed the problem. It's better to fix it early on than to fix it after you've lost them. So I do think customer support could be a great place. And I'm actually going to use that as a pivot into the next question. We're not going to have time for all the questions, so I'm going to this one. Where can collaboration between product management and customer support deliver the most value to the customers? Shabnam, you talked about where it could deliver a ton of value, business value for us as product managers and returning the business, because we can identify the potential churn issues. Where can we partner with them the best to add the value to the customers? And I'm Katherine, I'm going to go to you because I'm thinking about some of your listening post type stuff. Talk to me about your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so there's a couple easy wins here. Sometimes we identify through like why, the 5 whys, that it's a training issue, that there's a gap in knowledge of what the product can do and how it's supposed to work. So we identify training issues. Sometimes we identify that we have a product enhancement that we need that's going to provide a lot of value to them and decrease their, so there's that, and that value goes direct to the customers. I don't know about y'all's product, but in ours, it's a SaaS product. So when we build it in, it's available to everybody.
Yep.
So, that enhancement is a value to the customer. And the third thing is just sometimes, again, it might be a training issue, but if I'm looking at the trends of what are the most common customer support issues that they're getting, and I see a very common trend, we do a webinar. Yeah. And oftentimes what will come out of that 9 times out of 10 is we get feedback from the clients are like, oh my gosh, how'd you know we were dealing with the same problem? Well, we got it from customer support. So training, identification for client training, and enhancements that benefit us and the clients. So those are the 3 areas that I would say would provide the most value to their customers.
No, I love that. Actually, I've got a client who built the whole training department that was overcoming problem issue, design issues with the product, but they actually started charging people for it. They were, a dominant player in their segment, so they were able to do that. Calvin.
My initial point, and it's probably getting at a higher level of what Katherine drilled into, is just pain points. And I think those pain points can be some of those things that Katherine delineated.
Okay, so you're dittoing Katherine.
Yeah, I guess you could say it that way.
Awesome. May.
I think collaboration between like the entire company makes a better whole product, really. But to be very specific with customer support, because the more you interact with customer support, I would assume that the more that you're passing on that messaging and product understanding in that context.
Yep.
So they can actually speak more as an authority and understand, your product and where your product is going when they talk to all their customers. So that way, like the customers are like, oh, I didn't know this is where you're going. That's really interesting because that's where we are going. And then that maybe you can set up a new partnership, a great case study or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You made me think of, and I've got so many of these. I remember reading something 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and I can't find the article about it. Right. And it was research that was done for like luxury hotels, Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons type stuff. And there was a research on, here are the people who went to the Four Seasons, whatever, had a wonderful time, had no issues. And here's what their average star rating was. And here's the people who went there, had an issue, but it was the way it was resolved was like quick, prompt, over the top. Those people who had an issue and it was resolved promptly actually scored them higher in an NPS than those who had no issue whatsoever. And so, one of the things you said made me think about that is like part of our collaboration to deliver more value to the customer is help them understand they're part of the whole product, right? And help us understand. I don't want to build, there was a cynic in me. It's like, okay, build a small problem in that we can do an over-the-top job of solving to get them to give us a higher NPS score. That's a little too devious for me. But, helping them understand that and making sure we're supporting their process to make sure they can do that. And they understand that they are part of the product and that helps them, give more ownership and that type of stuff. Yes, it's the meta playbook.
But Grant, what you've highlighted there is really a lot of the things that that customer support hears are not big. It's not productivity loss or revenue loss. It's irritation. And so many, like virtually all ERP products, I spend my entire time being irritated. And if I could have somebody walk through it and I could just express to them why this is irritating, and an example that some people don't like is the mute button on Zoom. I mean, how many times are we going to say, dude, you're on mute? And is anybody at Zoom hearing that? I mean, I know I'm not calling in to complain about it. I bought my little mutiny button, but I think that's the kind of things that we're hearing through customer support that is value to customers, is not revenue producing, it's irritation reducing.
And May Wong just won the week in chat by saying, I spend my entire time being irritated. Steve Johnson.
Another good quote for the book.
Cory.
Yeah, the word that I was going to use, Steve came awful close to it, is frustration.
Mm-hmm.
What are users frustrated by? They may be irritated by it. And I was thinking of using the word disgusted, but usually people who don't people call into support aren't disgusted. If they're disgusted, they won't use your product at all.
Oh, yeah, they leave.
Savage you somewhere else. But frustrated is the key emotion that I'm looking to dig into with understanding from support.
I
would like to counter that point a little bit. If the value you get is enough, it could overcome disgustedness. Yeah, but I think it's really about the value and the impacts. Like if you're frustrated, you probably do, somewhere deep inside you might like what you're doing with the product as well. But if it's like that one giant needle that's always poking at you.
And I'm going to sort of go in there and say, I don't know if I've ever been disgusted by the product. I've been disgusted by the company. Right? Maybe I had one Lyft ride where the guy was smoking pot and he had cracked windshields and, the car had no suspension. Maybe that disgusted me. But normally it's the company or the culture that we're disgusted with, not the product itself. Nils.
Well, no, in my case, I'm disgusted with the product. And if it's disgusting enough, if I'm dissatisfied enough, I do start looking for an alternative.
Okay. I retract mine. I guess I maybe for me it's more I look at the holistic aspect of the company as part of it, and I get discussed with the company before is what would lead me to that. Nils, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I put in the chat, disgusted people don't call support. I think that's true. They call the salesperson.
Yeah.
In enterprise software anyway. And I think disgust arises when the product, often it's when the product doesn't match the company's story or the salesperson's story.
Yep.
And it's like, we are going to take care of you in this way, and then we fail to take care of them in that way. And that's not just frustration, that's anger and disgust, I think, a lot of times. Particularly when we do something, the disgust arises when what we do is sort of the opposite
of what they expect.
Of what they expect or what they were told. So I totally understand that sense of disgust.
I did not think this was going to devolve into the topic of disgust and disgusting. And I will say, yes, when you're in the food service industry, I have been disgusted with some products I've had in a food service location. So I will give you that. Shabnam, any thoughts?
I think even if they are disgusted or frustrated.
Oh, no, actually, we don't need to keep talking about disgusting.
Okay. So if people are frustrated or annoyed, one of those two emotions, if they're calling us, they still care a little, or they still like the product a little, or it's solving some need. So so I think there's something there. On your question around collaboration, agree with what everyone said, particularly early in the product stage.
Yep.
When you just release it right in the beginning, where you actually want to hear every little niggle and irritation and frustration, because likely as a product team you've created some space to iterate and evolve on the product. But like 5 or 10 years later, if a customer support person says like, hey, there's a little niggle here, the chances of you prioritizing that is quite slim.
Yeah, no, I love that. Glenn, before we move to lightning round, your thoughts. I'll get back to you too, Calvin.
I kind of agree that products are never exactly perfect, but if you bring something up and you know that other people have that problem and the company kind of doesn't really act upon that, that company culture of not aggressively addressing things really kind of annoys me. So I
No,
kind of feel more against the company than the product itself because I feel one has caused those problems. So there's
no,
a bigger picture issue going on than just saying that button should not be there and it's
no.
not doing what it's wanting to do.
Makes sense. Nils, you said going back to the earlier comment, thinking about how to get the customer to have the successful early experience with the product is something you could put into a functional spec in. You probably could use customer support and training as part of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the goal is for, one of the goals hopefully is people don't call customer support because they don't need help because the product works and it does what they want and it does it in the way that they expect. And that would really change your relationship with customer support at that time, right? They would be only getting calls for unusual situations, which you could then learn a lot from.
Yeah.
Or obviously acute problems with the actual system where it doesn't work, which is of course you do want early warning on that. But I always think I'm a big promoter of Kathy Sierra's Badass book, which is all about matching the customer's experience of the product with the marketing experience that they have before they get the product.
Yep.
The glossy pictures and the marketing, are they really matched by the experience that the client gets when they start using the product?
A lot of this is getting back to perception and reality, right? The perception we've built with them and the reality they have in our product or the experience with us. Calvin, you wanted to say something before we moved on to the lightning round.
Yeah, and it was going to be, actually Nils jumped in for me, so that was going to be another ditto, which is that, that customers call in when they have a challenge, when they have a sticky area, when they have something that's not working for them. They're not calling to, for friendship. So trying to address those, the way that we can learn from them is really to understand what is it that's driving them to call in, whatever that may be, whether it's a product issue or a service problem or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. I love that idea. And now it's time to go to the lightning round, and it's still going to be lightning, although we've had a couple people have had to leave before we started it, so we don't have to be as lightning maybe. As a product leader, what is your advice to a new product manager on collaborating with customer support? And I am going to start with Cory.
I'll reiterate what I said earlier, which is take a call.
Take a call. All right. Shabnam.
I was going to say that.
And.
Yeah, I would say like listen to a call every day. Yeah.
Listen to a call every day. You don't have to take it, but listen to what's going on. I love that. Calvin.
Yes, and review available data on what customers are calling in about.
Review. So not just listen to them or take them, but actually look at the data on the causes of those calls. All right. Nils.
I'd probably start with a conversation with some actual senior line customer support person to find out sort of what happens, what they hear, the types of things they hear, and how they're tracking stuff.
I love that. So let's do almost some like the listening post as Catherine was talking about earlier. Let's make sure we hear what's going on. May.
Treat them like the experts they are, right? Because most people look down on support. They're experts.
Yeah.
Treat
they're
them
experts
like
on your product.
Yeah, I love that. May, between your comment on Steve always being irritated in the chat and this, you clearly are winning the week.
Good job, May.
All right, Steve.
Well, I'm going to yes and everybody, but in particular, realizing that support is often a second-class citizen, they should be your first source. I think we listen honestly. I think we listen too much to salespeople and not nearly enough to customer support people.
I completely get that and agree. And I'm going to come in with something I said earlier. Help them understand that they're part of the whole product and the importance of that and what the expectation is of people who want to do that. So we're taking calls, we're listening to them, we're reviewing the data on those calls, we're talking with a senior customer person, we're treating them like the experts they are as a first source to go to. And we're helping them understand that they are part of the product and a critical part of the product. I can tell my Ritz-Carlton Four Seasons story, even though I can't find the source for that. What a great week. I wasn't sure where we were going to get with customer support. And I think this got a lot better than the conversation we had in reality was much better than I perceived it was going to be, going back to that theme of perception versus reality with customer support. And I want to thank everybody on the call, Cory, Shabnam, Calvin, May, and of course, my partner, Steve Johnson. As I say every week, I learn, I write stuff down, I take notes, I change my opinions, and it's because of everybody on this call. And we do this every week, right? On Monday, we have the question go in. On Wednesday, we have the poll. And on Fridays, we have these incredible conversations. So thanks to each of you for the conversation, and we'll see you next week in the community.